Am I the a-hole for telling my brother-in-law that him and his girlfriend are no longer welcome in my home because they are autistic and vegan? I, 30F, and my husband, 29M, have been together 10 years, married 5 of those. The last 3 years we have been making our own traditions as my in-laws' dynamic is incredibly toxic, and this is our first home, and we'd like to incorporate a little bit of ourselves into our new traditions. So we now cook for my entire family and ourselves and deliver it throughout the day of the holiday. A couple of weeks ago, my BIL, 19M, graduated trade school and moved back in with us. He asked us if it was okay if his GF, 20F, came over Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. We said not a problem. Well, last night, it did become a problem. BIL's GF is a vegetarian. I put this in quotations as all I've ever seen her eat is mac and cheese and pizza. We decided we're making loaded mashed, jalapeno poppers, stuffed mushrooms, deviled eggs, sweet potato casserole, candied yams, and ham. We have in the past tried accommodating BIL's GS diet in the past, and it was a complete waste of time as she refused to eat anything we made, all vegetarian-based, so we learned a few months ago we are not catering to her difficult nature. It's not about diet. She's a pain in the ass. Last night it came up that we aren't making mac and cheese. We made the viral teeny mac and cheese for Thanksgiving. We decided to remake the dishes from Thanksgiving that got the most love and compliments, the ones that people most enjoyed. Most of our dishes having lots of cheese in them as well as carbs. We didn't want to add the mac and cheese. This girl lost her SHIT last night. She raised her voice and kept yelling, "What am I supposed to eat? There's no mac and cheese." She was insistent and berating my BIL until my husband stepped in and reminded her they're adults and could go to the store in the morning to make their own. She didn't like this and continued complaining, so I jumped in and said that there's boxed mac and cheese they can make themselves. She then saw my husband was drinking last night and took it upon herself to tell him to go get her the pink stuff my mom always drinks. I informed her that she is 1, underage, and 2, if she's on medication, she shouldn't mix alcohol with them. She rolled her eyes at me as brother-in-law pointed to me like, "That what she said?" She then blew me off and continued to talk to my BIL to figure out the pink stuff her mom's always drinking. I want to add that his GF is high-functioning autistic. I'm not sure if this behavior is partially due to that, or if she's just a spoiled rotten brat who's never heard no in her entire life, but I do not want this behavior in my household ever again. How the hell can I better navigate this situation while she's still here for the next 2 days? I'm so close to finding a dog-friendly hotel and just going there with my dog and husband until BIL takes his GF back home. Ada for telling him when he takes her home that will be the last time she's welcome here? Or do I keep quiet until he asks if she can spend the night here in the future, to which we can kindly decline? Relevant comments. Commenter 1. You're 10 years older than this girl. Straighten your spine. Remind her she is a guest in your home, and you're more than happy to tonic your home if she doesn't like how things are in your house. ASD or not, she's being an ill-mannered brat. AMD should be called out for it. They'll need to serve too. They both need to learn to behave as polite adults or go somewhere else. Opie. I did. I snapped and said that there's boxed mac and cheese and that there was no reason to throw a fit over it. My husband was also addressing it at the same time. I guess we reached our limit at the same time, and he told them the store should be open in the morning. They're adults and can make it themselves. Needless to say, we will not be including them in today's plans. I had planned a day for all of us. It'll stay the same plan, just with 2 less BC. That was insane to witness. I was honestly flabbergasted, and I'm shocked I mustered any response. Commenter 2. Some autistic people are incredibly picky when it comes to food. A few refuse to eat anything, but that one dish they actually can stomach, which seems to be mac and cheese for your BIL's GF. So far, it is something that is somewhat understandable given her medical background. What takes the cake, though, is the thing about her demanding alcohol. This puts you firmly in NTA territory. OP. She brings an entire shopping bag's worth of food every time she comes, which she never ends up touching. We have in the past tried to accommodate her diet and food choices, and she outright refused. It seems we are damned if we do, damned if we don't with her, and it's become exhausting and irritating at this point. I get sensory issues. I have a TON of my own. I will completely shut down mentally, emotionally, physically. I get sensory issues. However, I have never behaved like that when my husband accidentally brushes his jeans against my freshly showered pruny hands, although I feel as if I'm dying from the inside out when it happens. Why is OP having problems with the GF's choices in food? OP. My problem isn't her choices in food. My problem is her behavior and entitlement. I couldn't care less what she wants to eat, but when we numerous times have tried to accommodate her diet, that was a problem in one way or another. I don't hate her. I don't know her. I have a problem with her creating a problem no matter if we are unaware of her choices in food, accommodate them, or she brings her own stuff. My problem is she creates an issue with everything from the TV shows we put on to the food we make for ourselves. We are not hosting. We are not entertaining. He asked to have her over, and he is responsible for her, not us. That is my problem. I'm not attacking her dietary needs. You damn vegetarians are so weird, grinning face with sweat, squinting face. Editor's note. After OP responded to a number of comments, a small update was made regarding BIL and the GF. Small update. In comments. Same night, very late. OP. Update as of tonight. Before leaving to do our rounds with my family of dropping off food and exchanging gifts, husband reiterated clearly that we are not hosting and they are responsible for feeding themselves. We came home to BIL making GF mac and cheese, and then he left a mess in the kitchen, so we addressed that and had him clean up after himself. We have a dishwasher, and yet BIL opted to hand wash it. We inquired about this, and I asked if he had forgotten we had at BC, where he was living, didn't have one. Well, it did, but he liced with 4 other teenage boys, and it was used for storage, never its intended purpose. He then got snippy and stated BC of a type of dishes they were he was unsure as to whether or not we would need them sooner than the load would be done, as we had been cooking all day. Him and GF were hanging out in his bedroom while husband and I were doing a puzzle when it dawned on me I had mentioned to BIL before this visit we had gingerbread houses, and I had asked if they'd like to do that. As others have stated, people with autism don't typically like change, and if this was an expectation she had due to me brainstorming the idea with BIL a few weeks ago, I chose to keep my word despite my annoyance and utter exhaustion, and it went very well. We only had 2, so my husband and I worked on one as BIL, and his GF worked on theirs. She was a bit of a pain in the ass with BIL while they were making theirs, but he seemed to be enjoying himself. While also calling out her ridiculous requests regarding the icing detail she was asking of BIL. My husband has work in the morning, as do I. I believe they are leaving early afternoon tomorrow, so as far as this visit goes, I believe the drama is over for now. I will most definitely update with how the convo with BIL goes once it takes place. I'm not sure if he intends on staying with her for a few days before he starts his new full-time big boy dream job. A lot has been happening for him very quickly lately, and I believe he is overwhelmed, which is why we have been so extensive with our grace and patience. This is the ultimate test of my patience, as I am 19 months sober from alcohol, and this has been by far the most challenging situation I have faced since getting sober. I have much to work on personally, and I recognize and own this fully. I am happy that we were able to smooth things out, maintain the peace in our home, spend quality time without any problems despite the chaos of last night. Thank you to everyone who took the time to read and give your input, opinions, experience, knowledge. It was incredibly helpful today in helping me navigate things. Update number 2. BIL just said to husband I overheard they are staying until Saturday. Now, I need to figure out how we are addressing this, as we were just making tonight go smoothly. Now this. Editor's note. OP made the same latest update in the same original post and a separate post. Update. 3 days later. Update. Husband took BIL outside Wednesday night alone and had a good conversation with him. Husband was actually a bit upset at how well BIL took the fact that they were being told to leave Thursday. He let BIL know him blowing off my texts, saying one thing to his GF expecting something out of us, without communicating it could have saved him a big unnecessary problem, and that due to his lack of communication and our plans they needed to leave. So they left Thursday afternoon. I stopped acknowledging the GF after Thursday morning when I said good morning to the 2 of them. I'll be honest, I had a lapse in better judgment, and after being blown off, as she's looking me directly in my eyes, raised my voice a bit and said, "Okay, I'll just got fucked myself then." We intend on sitting down and having a serious conversation with BIL when he gets home tomorrow. If anyone has any suggestions or things that stick out to them that they'd not allow to go unaddressed, please let me know. We will be taking him off our Easy Pass. He has a month to get his own phone plan, and he'll be paying rent weekly, and then maybe as some time goes on, and he can be trusted, we will change that to monthly. He struggled with monthly rent while away at school for whatever the reason may be. Boundaries regarding his GF, although now that he will be responsible for the tolls, $40 to $50 each way. If he visits, I don't believe he'll be bringing her back, as we will only allow 2 nights max per visit, and as of now, only on weekends, pre-approved, and no last second changing a 2-day stay to 5-day stay, as that isn't tolerated, and they will be asked to leave like they were this time around. The immediate switch for BIL, and respect towards me, was immediately evident. Ran to get the trash cans out BC of the holidays. The days were messed up, and he had forgotten. He's only been back 3 weeks, Its understandable trash goes out 1x a week, a change since he last lived with us when it was 2x a week, and then came inside to ask if he should bring recycling out as well, like jumping to help out after having consequences to his actions. Which was a relief. BC, it reaffirmed he is willing, and is just that structure and boundaries he is so lacking and needing. I will try my best to update how our conversation goes. Thank you everyone who took the time to give this post the time of day. Editor's note: remove the first half of the latest update, as it is a rehash of the original and mini update. Update number 1. 3 days later. Last night, BIL brought to our attention that his GF is very upset. She doesn't feel we communicate with her or try to get to know her. My husband and I quickly responded that respect and communication work both ways. From the moment I introduced myself to her, his GF has blown me off and hasn't acknowledged me once. I even went so far as to run to a metaphysical shop when I saw her interest in my crystals. I brought all of my crystals, tarot cards, and astrology books down for her to show I was paying attention and listening to her interests. It seems no matter what we do in this situation, we are in the wrong. So, halfway through her stay last week, I opted to ignore her. From good morning, to no thank you for her gifts or hospitality, no goodbye, the constant demands for alcohol or mac and cheese. We don't know the girl enough to not like her, but I do not like her behavior. It's childish, obnoxious, and demanding. We pointed out how every single time she has come to visit, she has blown both myself and my husband off. I don't understand what his BIL is asking of us. We are not his parents. It isn't our responsibility to play 21 questions to get to know her. BC, if I'm being completely honest, I personally do not care. I have enough of my own personal things going on than to be worrying myself without to carefully try and communicate with my BIL's GF. I don't have an issue communicating. She does. In order for a conversation to take place, two parties gotta partake in the conversation. I'm happy BIL brought up the conversation regarding respect. BC called out his very disrespectful behavior as well as his GFS. It kind of rubbed me the wrong way. BC here. He is demanding we respect his GF, yet hadn't shown an ounce from the moment he moved back in about a month ago. My husband and myself are giving ourselves the day to reflect on the discussion we all had last night, and will revisit sometime this week/weekend. I've already got my list of house guidelines/expectations ready going forward. This includes him being responsible for any guests he brings to the house. I also called out the entire mac and cheese ordeal and how inappropriate it was to behave that way. That isn't how adults communicate. Unfortunately, I see his GF being the beginning of his downfall. He begins his dream job next week, and I fear it isn't going to last long due to the demands of his helpless GF. I am a bit peeved this morning, so this update may be a bit judgmental and snippy, but I'm yet again at a loss for words. The audacity, I guess. Relevant comments. OP explains more details regarding setting up the strict guidance on how to manage his budget after BIL was kicked off the phone plan and Easy Pass. OP. The phone plan, rent, and Easy Pass were coming regardless of his GF. The purpose of moving in with us was to ensure he is taught how to stand on his own 2 feet and become independent and self-sufficient. December was a freebie as he gets employment, settled, and can have a bit of money to commute and pay for tolls. I have tried since before Thanksgiving to sit down myself, my husband and BIL, and have a serious discussion so we can all be on the same page. BIL last second opted not to come to Thanksgiving due to GF. Then 8 p.m. that Friday decided to text us they were on their way. There was no discussion or plan to have both of them come, so they were told to go back as they weren't welcome due to the lack of communication. Q last week, the same shit regarding communication, and due to BIL not being home much the last few weeks, I haven't had the opportunity to sit down and have this discussion. I am torn about whether or not to allow her back under our roof. We don't want to punish him as he is an adult and not our child, but at the same time there needs to be mutual respect in our house, as well as boundaries. This being his first ever GFN relationship, we are trying our best to be respectful of that, but also not allowing that to overstep basic respect. I find it insane that the issues we were faced with her are the exact complaints she raised to BIL. I refused to sit there and play 21 questions. I had tried engaging in conversation with this girl at least a dozen times before I finally had enough of failed attempts and opted to ignore her. OP clarifies details regarding the routine that was changed at her house with BIL's GF, not respecting it since she is autistic. OP. I made sure due to being aware of her autism, keeping my word with things such as I brought up the idea of gingerbread houses and seeing as BIL assumes and tells his GF things as fact that is where the issue lies, which I made sure to address last night, as well as the fact that his guests are his responsibility. We didn't invite them as we weren't hosting, and that's his responsibility to take care of. We may share a roof, but they are adults and neither are our children. We don't owe them anything. I refuse to have the entire dynamic of my household cater to her needs. I can see where autism plays a part, but I also see where coddled, spoilt behavior comes into play. She's aware of respect and communication and demands it yet refuses to do so when spoken to. That's insane and a setup for failure, and after multiple failed attempts at trying to communicate with her throughout her visits, my husband and I both reached our limit and outright stopped attempting. OP provides more context on why BIL is living with her and her husband brother, not his parents. OP, his father passed well over 10 years ago, and my MIL, well, I'll just point out that she stole 12 years worth of his SS death benefits. He was living on his own the last 15 months while away at school and working full-time. Due to MIL taking all of his money, he has a loan to pay off. He is living with us while he pays that off, saves up, and we can help guide him on how to be an adult. Husband's currently teaching him about credit. He is living with us BC. We love him, we see his potential, and we want to see him succeed. The goal is to get a place of his own, but for the next couple of months while he adjusts to a big boy job, his literal dream job, and we can show him how to manage his money as well as helping him with his confidence. He is willing. He just needs to be told what to do. It's annoying for me, but out of all the issues we could be having, I'll get over my hatred of repeating myself for the sake of watching him go places and be happy. Update number 2. 1 month later. Hey all. It's been a little over a month since my last post, and figured I'd share the latest update for those who are interested in the outcome of this situation. The beginning of January, my 30F, BIL, 20M, started his dream career. A month to the date after graduating. We are incredibly proud. The only problem, this job is an hour-and-a-half commute one way on a good traffic day. It's a lot of commuting. His first week, he loved it. He was sending my husband, 29M, pics and videos throughout the week of vehicles that were in the shop he thought were cool or videos of him learning something new. He's currently doing maintenance work at the dealership he's working at, but intends on furthering his career and continuing his education through work and through other programs offered for different certificates. He leaves at 5:30 every morning and was originally getting home anywhere from 6:45 to 7:30 at night. He works 5 days a week, soon to be 6. His GF, 20F, lives 2 hours from us, 3 hours from his job. Every Friday he leaves to visit her, sometimes from work, other times he comes all the way home to shower. She's in college, and I'm assuming he can't shower there, and then makes the trip to her house, leaving him driving minimally 5 hours in just 1 day. He then comes home Sunday to restart his work week. Due to the above, we have not seen his GF since. It would be an insane amount of driving for my BL to bring her back home. Why is he responsible for all of the driving, you may ask? She refuses to get her license. Yes, flat out refuses at this point, as it has become a pressing issue in their relationship and, quite honestly, my BIL's overall well-being. In the last 3 weeks, this is what I have noticed and experienced. BIL has been getting home at 6:15 every day. It's absolutely possible he found the right route and perfect time to have smooth commute. However, when he gets home, he is flying. We live in a neighborhood that's 25 miles per hour and blasting very loud and angry music. No judgment, I listen to the exact same kind of music. He has been slamming doors, drawers, and cabinets, heavy sighing constantly. And when he is asked about his day and how work was, we were hit annoyedly with boring. He also blasted the same angry kind of music Sunday night despite knowing my husband and I were in the next room, the living room, watching a movie, just being inconsiderate. Some context, and it may sound silly, but he is so to himself and introverted I honest to God wasn't even sure he listened to music, especially the kind he's been listening to. He also stopped showering daily. What I'm getting at here is all of these things are incredibly out of character for him. Every single night, he has what we all refer to as his appointment with his GF, as she calls every night. With every passing day, his frustration and annoyance regarding these phone calls was becoming glaringly apparent. Things really came to a head when 2 nights ago we asked how work was, and he said terrible. Enough was enough, and my husband and myself had a much-needed heart-to-heart with my BIL. We expressed our concern for his well-being and recognize he's incredibly overwhelmed. His GF demands he visits her every single weekend, and if he doesn't, she will get really upset. When we asked when he intended to take a self-care day for himself, as over the last few weeks, my husband vehemently expressed to BIL that if he didn't pick a day to rest, his body would pick for him, and that very rarely ever happens at a convenient time. BIL stated he didn't want to lie, and it wasn't a valid reason to not visit to catch up on rest and check in with himself. I shared my top 3 concerns with him. I do not want him, due to lack of rest, getting into a car accident with his long commutes. I don't want him to make a mistake at work and end up injured or worse as he works on vehicles. One small mistake, and you can end up squished underneath of a car. Or ends up getting fired. He's going to lose his shit on his GF. And we know he doesn't want to do that, nor would he mean it. I inquired about his GF getting her license, and he said that she'd consider it. I asked him WTF that means. He said he has no idea, very clearly aggravated at the topic, not towards me, the topic itself. I asked him what was stopping her from getting it. She's turning 21 this summer. He told me she's afraid she'll get distracted and crash. I asked what she would get so distracted by that it'd affect her driving. With some thinking, he says a dog. I'm pretty sure he is just relaying what it is she's using as excuses without actually putting any thought into it, and just accepting it as fact. I challenged it, and inevitably he agreed that she needed to get her license, as he was not going to get a place with her until she does so. I doubt he's had this discussion with his GF yet. That's okay. Yesterday, I did my research for the state she lives in as to how to get her license. Obviously, you must get a permit first. Perfect. I made up about 50 index cards, illustrations included where I could, to help her study for and take her permit test. Unless she goes to driving school, she has to have her permit for 6 months and then can test for her license. Does it solve her driving immediately, or as soon as we'd like? No. But I'm hoping that if she's unwilling to even do this, my BIL can wake up and see that this is hardly a relationship and is unsustainable. Last night, I gave him the index cards and explained to him how to go about helping her. I also expressed that despite the pushback and resistance he'd receive, he's not to back down, as he isn't pushing her license. He's asking her to get her permit, which would be a step towards her being able to get her license. She refuses to get her license right now. So be it. She can get her permit. It's an 18-question test, and you need 15 correct to pass. No driving involved. If she is unwilling to do this, I'm hoping he can see this isn't the person for him. He needs a partnership, not a dependent. After our first conversation this week, the heart-to-heart, things became much lighter in my home. My BIL was more cheerful and talkative, and not so reserved to himself, or isolating essentially. Then, after last night's conversation, I asked when his appointment was. When I tell you, his response contained more fucking than any other words. To be honest, I'm not even sure what he said other than F-bombing every other word, clearly getting fed up. He explained he's told her he's going to shower and eat. But yet again her call interrupted him mid-dinner, and rather than just letting it ring her angrily got up and went to his bedroom. That was at 8:15, and he never came back out of his room. This is the norm, and a huge part of the reason he is sleep-deprived, as well as not taking any time for himself. He also shared how his GF says he has terrible taste in vehicles, which seemed to upset my BM. He told me, I pointed out, how the F does she know anything about cars? She refuses to drive. And he got all excited and I guess was validated and reassured BC. He was like, right? Exactly. Then the phone call came, and away he went. I'm hoping in the next few weeks we can help him understand and establish appropriate and healthy boundaries for himself. Why he's answering those calls when his GF talks to him like that. I'll be sure to update if there's any progress on his GF's end, but I doubt there will be, and hope that if that is the case my BIL is capable of doing what's best for himself. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. I think you're getting a bit too involved, frankly. He's an adult. So is she. You doing research and handing it over is just coddling them, even if you have good intentions. He needs to realize that he can't carry on like this on his own. You constantly leading him to realizations isn't helping him. At 20, he needs to plan his own day-to-day, manage his own relationships, and prioritize his own care. Take a step back. If he doesn't learn it now, he never will. OP. He's 20, but emotionally and socially probably 13. He does unfortunately need this type of guidance, which is why he is living with us. No other people in my in-laws have the patience nor knowledge to help him continue to progress. We're teaching him to budget cook. He has no idea. He went to throw the paper of the onion in a recipe last week. We aren't coddling him. He lacked any type of guidance growing up and essentially was on his own since 11. If I've lead him anywhere, it's to use his mind to think about the stuff that matters, the right questions to ask. When I asked him what the distractions would be, I could see him start to think. He never questioned it and just took it as fact. I opted to get involved when he was welcome to come back to our house. He needs this type of involvement. He's incredibly lost and is desperate for guidance. Thankfully, my husband and I are willing to take on the task. I have to disagree entirely with this comment. Commenter 2. Perhaps the reason he's emotionally and socially closer 13 is because nobody is allowing him the space to grow on his own. OP. He was on his own, no family, paying rent with roommates for the last 15 months. He lived off of fast food and was having trouble with rent. No one ever taught him how to care for himself. He had to teach himself at 11. Living with us is allowing him that space. He is safe under our roof, and we aren't taking every dollar he makes. We are teaching him as if he is 14/15 the basics of life. It's a lot. It's frustrating. We tried to let him figure out on his own, and his mental health was unwell, to say the least. He doesn't have the tools. He's really just clueless and lost. I understand he's 20, but he's my fucking family. I fully see the neglect and financial abuse he went through the last decade. He deserves to be loved well and learn how to love well. My MIL sheltered and isolated him as he's the youngest of her children. She told everyone he was shy growing up and shielded him behind her. When he moved in with us in 2022, we quickly learned that is not the case, as well as my BIL. BC was the first time he's ever felt safe enough to be himself. I can promise you at one point I wanted to protect him. Now I'm just here for him if he ever needs anything from a listening ear, voice, and someone who considers him. He was never considered growing up. OP shares on what she knows about the GF's issues with not getting a license or using public transportation. OP, being 100% honest, I've not brought that up BC given how she behaves and her expectations of him. I feel as if suggesting public transportation would be ludicrous to her. But I won't know until I bring it up to him, so next time the topic of her arises, I will be sure to get that into the flow of conversation. Because if that is something she is willing to do, this current LDR dynamic would be much more doable. It would cut down his driving. Even if she couldn't make it all the way to where we live, he could meet her. I appreciate the suggestion. I think it's worth at least bringing up BC. I also jumped to the conclusion of it's something she wouldn't do. I know her father passed away. I'm wondering if it was car-related and has something to do with it. But I feel as if my BIL is aware enough in regards to his GF that he would connect the dots, but I have also been guilty of giving him way more credit, I guess essentially, than he is actually capable of. Not because he is unwilling, but BC, he hasn't been taught otherwise. His reactions in regards to the topic of her getting her license. He's outright annoyed. Not towards or at us. Just about the topic in general, BC, he keeps hitting a dead end anytime he tries to bring the topic up. I gave the flashcards in hopes that could ease her into the idea of driving and maybe take away some of the intense thought she's putting behind driving. Believe me, I understand it. From having a fear myself when I was younger, just because I overthought it, and I wanted to party without the responsibility of driving, if I'm being honest. But at 19, when the time came, and I had 4 jobs and no way of getting to and from them, I got my license. Then 2 years ago, I got T-boned by a Suburban going 50 plus mph that blew not one, but 2 stop signs and flipped and spun my car out. By the grace of God, I was okay, but my car was totaled as it spun and flipped. I get there's different fears. I also get some people just should not drive. I know she's not one of these people. She acts helpless, and I believe it is BC her mother treated her like an infant due to her diagnosis rather than raising her and treating her like the adult she now is. And from context and conversation, it seems her mother also has a drinking problem. So ultimately my hope is to not only help my BL, but also his GF, as she is also clearly very lost. But at the end of the day, and most realistically my BIL is first and foremost. And at least one of them needs to know how to establish healthy boundaries for themselves, or there's no hope for a healthy relationship. This may be the end for them, or it could be an uncomfortable new beginning for them both individually and as a couple.